This episode is brought to you by Endless Comics, Games, and Cards. Whether you are a dedicated Wednesday warrior or looking for the latest drop of TCG and sports cards, Endless Comics, Games, and Cards has you covered.
While Endless is known for their large collection of both single-issue comics and library of graphic novels, not to mention their monthly comic book club, they also stay fully stocked with singles and sealed product for Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and many others.
What's the best part? You can set up your pull list online at endlesscgc.com and they will send your new books to you.
So head on over to endlesscgc.com or check them out on social media at endlesscgc.
Oblivionauts, Aubrey Sitterson here, writer of Free Planet, No One Left to Fight, The Comic Book Story of Professional Wrestling, and much, much more. And you are listening to the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Welcome to the Oblivion Bar podcast with your host, Chris Hacker and Aaron Knowles.
Joining us today is the creative team of the Image Comics series Free Planet, a geopolitical space opera that not only explores the sacrifices required for freedom, but how those sacrifices eventually lay the foundation of how we remember the people and events involved in obtaining that freedom. It is our pleasure to welcome Aubrey Sitterson and Jed Dougherty onto the Oblivion Bar podcast.
Woo! Yeah, welcome back.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks for having us. Thanks for having me back, boys.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. It's been too long.
so happy to have you back. Jed, thank you so much for joining us for the first time. It's a pleasure to have you here talk about Free Planet.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, yeah. And I think I want to just start us off here in this conversation. We're going to talk a lot about Free Planet, as we mentioned, but I do want to start with you, Aubrey, who, you joined us back in March of this year to discuss Free Planet prior to the release of issue 1. And I think this is undeniably the quickest turnaround of any repeat guest that we've had here on the Oblivion Bar. So thank you for that.
Well, man, y'all were a blast to talk with, dude. Like, I reached out. I mean, just to be clear here, I reached out to Chris and Aaron to come back because Jed, it was just me the first time around, and I wanted y'all to talk to Jed, and I didn't want to be left out because because it was a blast, and I really the first time around, I had my talking points, right? I had my material and my stuff I needed to get through. I had to get my shit in, and I did. And this time out, I'm pleased to stand back and let Jed do some of the heavy lifting, and just get a little loosey goosey with y'all.
That's right.
And
Jed,
hell yeah, you'll jump in to do some more heavy lifting.
I wouldn't dare. I would never dare interrupt your flow.
Jed looks to me like one of those people that would never describe himself as loosey-goosey. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, not recently. No.
Not those exact words.
Yeah, in a former life.
Yes.
But let's start with this, Aubrey. So, we're 3 issues into the series thus far. We're recording this on August 5th. And with issue 4 coming out on August 13th. So that's a couple days after we release this episode. And I think readers who have picked up the book or even those that haven't picked up the book, have heard the legends of Free Planet and this just insane book that is unlike anything else on the shelf. So really simple question, maybe possibly a large question for you, Aubrey. How do you feel like the reception has been thus far with the series, soon to be 4 issues in?
Great.
leave it at
Awesome.
that.
Yeah. Period. Done. Next question.
Thumbs up.
Let's
Move
go.
on.
No, it's been amazing. And here's the thing, we launched really big and the book's doing really well, and which is always crucial, right, to these things continuing on. But what's been the most meaningful thing to me, it's nice getting all the good reviews and seeing stuff on social media, but the thing that has convinced me most that we're onto something, right, that this is working, are the letters that we've been getting in, right? And they're not normal letters. If you read Free Planet, you've seen that each issue ends with an essay by our in-world narrator, Dr. Algis Foyrushi, and he solicits questions about Lutheria, which is where Free Planet is set, as well as the broader universe in which the story takes place. And people have played along. People have gotten really into it and sent really thoughtful, really complex, sometimes very specific questions about the world. And starting in issue 3, we have letters pages with Dr. Algis Foirushi answering all these questions. And we already started, I got one yesterday from a repeat customer, just as someone who asked, he has some follow-up. Mario has some follow-up questions for Dr. Algis Foirushi. Yeah, hell yeah, Mario. And I love that, because that means that not only are people buying it, not only do people recognize the work and the skill and the craft that went into this thing, which is, all that stuff is amazing, but that people are appreciating it on the level that they were intended to, and that we hoped that they would, and that people would really want to dig into this thing. That people are already doing that is, I don't know. I am left, as I rarely am, at a loss for words. It's that gratifying.
Sure. Jed, let me pass it over to you really quickly, because, I think it's mostly known among the readership and fans of the series, and both of yours, that like Aubrey is sort of the largest megaphone on this team. But, from your perspective, I know you've done a couple appearances on podcasts and such. What has sort of been your view of the release of this, again, very different series? Is this, have you ever felt like this at any point in your career before Free Planet? And if not, what's been different about it?
Like Aubrey's saying, we're getting feedback on it, which is nice. I've worked on a few series, and it feels like dropping rocks into a hole. You're like, well, it's done, and I never hear anything further, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to get a little bit of reverb at least, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I was enjoying. So one thing I really like, Aubrey stated about earlier, some of the letters, and I like reading, the letters, and like, because you were right, people are even asking things like the economy and going like deep into the lore. So that's always really fun, and I can't wait till we start talking more about the art and everything that goes into this, because I have so many comments and questions as well. But Aubrey, you mentioned last time on the show that you wanted Free Planet to exist as like a piece of a literature and art object. Is anyone who reads the series, like or has been to your Substack, Atlantis Still Sunk, already understands that you definitely put in enough research that it can only be measured really in days and not just like hours. So I'm curious, Jed, we're going to start with you on this one. How did Aubrey pitch the idea of Free Planet to you? And did you truly know what you were getting yourself into when you said yes?
Geez. Pretty focused from the start on being a revolutionary comic and an ensemble cast. But I mean, I think it was 21 when we were talking about starting it. We were still working on Savage Hearts, and Aubrey was already raring to go on another book. So
my part was already done. I had already written it. There were only 5 issues.
Can you hurry up, Jet, so we can do the next thing, please?
Savage Hearts was much lighter content, but so it's been a while. I'd have to dig up the old communications on that stuff. And no, I didn't have an idea of like how in depth I would have to go on just designing a ton of stuff. Like I'm working on issue 10, I think, and I just go through the script and write down one line for every new thing that shows up. And I filled up 3 pieces of paper, new environments, new vehicles, new characters.
I sound like a monster.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what comes to mind, Aubrey.
We're creating a creative rift here on the Oblivion Bar live on set.
I would like to interject.
Okay, Aubrey, you can defend yourself now, please.
It's not a defense. I think it's a qualification,
sure.
Right? The degree of, so that's true, but that's broadly true of like most comic scripts, like that are like in a fantasy world or a sci-fi world or something. That's true oftentimes. I think the difference here is that Jed makes the list, and then Jed thinks deeply about each one, how they interact with each other, and how they fit into what he has already designed. And that is 100% a choice, and it's a choice that is a little bit demented, but also is exactly what makes Free Planet feel so lived in. What makes it feel rich and authentic. And the degree to which Jed did that on Savage Hearts shamed me, right? Honestly, because like the scripts I wrote for Savage Hearts, they were good scripts, but they were not deliberately thought through and constructed scripts, the way that Free Planet is and the way that Jed approaches all of his artwork.
Overthinking, I guess.
That is the Free Planet approach, though, is to overthink everything, is to think about and overthink
or
everything.
Give the appearance of overthinking everything. I know there's some stuff that I've let slip through the hole.
Oh, cut that out.
Okay, Fab. We can't break that.
You metaphorically
it's
cut
seamless.
that out. Y'all can leave it in there because we should shame him for doing it. No. We don't have any time for that. Knock it off. No, but that is central to the approach, I think, is overthinking it, right? Like, I mean, the letters pages fit in with that. The historical captions, right? Like the level of like one day when we release like the Art of Free Planet book and you get to see the mountains of designs and sketches Jed has done, you'll see the degree to which all of this stuff is considered. And people are already starting to pick up little bits and pieces of it. But there's more, right? Because it's that richly and deeply considered. And that's what it's not overthinking, it's rich and deep consideration.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that, because for me, the one thing I find incredible about this, and I know I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in the conversation, but especially in the intro, we talked about how this is like a space opera, and this feels not just the way it's written, but when you look at it on the page, it feels like the comic version. I know that they've been doing a comic version of like Dune and like the House of Atreides, but like this to me feels, it has that Dune feeling and vibe and thought to it, and like,
level of consideration,
like the level of consideration, and it's just an incredible visually, and like and words on a page, like written, it all just flows into this big space opera. And we've only mostly read, like, again, we got to, I mean, I guess everybody's read issue 3. We're so early on into it in such a complex and deep story. It's amazing what's been achieved so far in just world building alone. I mean, art wise, like there's that splash page in issue 2 that just has like this year in Free Planet, and
yeah,
oh my God, like
it's in issue 1 and 2 actually at the very last. I guess considered the last page before the ads.
I've never wanted to buy like an actual piece of original art until I saw that. Like if that came in like an original art, I've never wanted to buy like something out of somebody's like portfolio.
You gotta get some prints
until I
made
saw that. That
con,
is incredible work. So again, but it pays tribute to what you guys have done. You deserve the flowers for both, again, thematically and visually, and again, dialogue wise, like building so much in just this short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Aubrey, can I build off something that you said a moment ago? And I apologize if this is maybe a little too challenging. I don't mean this to sound too like aggressive or anything like that, but I'm just curious with a venture that is, like this is as we've been saying, Free Planet is so different from anything else on the shelf. I don't think it's as easily said as shown. People have to physically hold Free Planet and sift through it to understand what we're talking about here.
In the physical format too, I think.
Absolutely.
Right? Like it's a rough read digitally. It is.
It's tough. That's how we read the first issue before our first conversation was digitally. And you even, to your credit, was like, hey, just so you guys know, the digital version of this book, not easy to read, but when you hold it in your hands, it definitely, you can drink it in a little bit easier, But I'm curious, if you have someone who, maybe Free Planet isn't exactly their speed in terms of like the density of it, how do you combat that if you do? Like, what's your response to someone who says, I don't know, man, it's just a little too packed for me? What do you say to that?
So it's a great question. And it's something I've thought a lot about. Like I've thought about it in a sales context, right? Because I do these I'm going to be in Madison, Wisconsin this weekend. Nice. So if you're in the Madison area, come see me. Tell me you heard me on the Oblivion bar and I'll give you something free. I'm not going to say what it is because I haven't decided yet, but that'll happen. So yeah, I think about it in the context of like, how do I put this in people's hands? What about the person who sees the amount of words on the page and recoils, right? What do I say to these people? But that's a consideration that I've been having since early on in this process, right? Because the truth of the matter is, typically, I don't like comics with as many words in them as Free Planet. And I did a lot of thinking about why that is. And I came to the conclusion that for me, it has less to do with the amount of words on the page, because I like reading, right? I like reading prose and, the written word. And it has less to do with the amount of words and more in terms of how they're deployed, right? And the approach we took on Free Planet is such that the caption, these like dense historical caption, right? Because there's not a ton of dialogue in Free Planet, right? It's these historical captions. And that information it's not supplementary, right? Because if you want to get the full picture, if you want to fully understand Free Planet, you have to read all of it, right? But they are not integral components of the specific scenes that you're watching, right? And this does a few things, right? One is it provides us a separate narratorial voice, right? And so then that point of view becomes an interesting thing to play with and to explore, right? And that has impact on what you're reading and how it's interpreted. And then the other thing it gets us is that we provide a separate narrative, right? There's a separate narrative thread that has thematic relevance and contextual relevance to what you're seeing on the page. But again, it's not a integral component such that the page itself can't be understood without it. And that's what I tell people. Not all that. That's boring. That's
in a few less
that's
words.
That's appropriate for a podcast. People are listening to it 2 times speed,
right.
But not for a normal life. No, I say, look, read as much as you want.
Yeah.
And you'll be rewarded for it. Right? If you want to just flip through this thing and look at Jed's art and these page designs, like, first of all, I guarantee you that you're going to slow down and you're going to want to read some of it. Right? But yeah, look at this. Look at this.
I have the second page of issue 1 open currently, everybody, just so you know, and it's the spread of the entire Freedom Guard team. And I think that alone, to sort of build on what you're saying there, Aubrey, could be advertisement enough to at least get someone interested in Free Planet if they had only just seen this double page spread.
Exactly. And people might still say, oh, that's so much text. To which I say, well, don't read it. Their names are bolded, right? Like their names are bolded, right? Their names are right up at the top. So you can get their names if you really want to. Also, because you bought this thing as it was intended to be read as a print periodical, your ass can flip back to it whenever you want.
Yeah.
It's a reference tool, right? Like, and if you say, oh, you know what? What was the difference between, like, what was the whole thing with Hora and Fueha again? Then you could just go back and look. Just go back and check it out, man. Like, and it's a different type of comic in that regard. And the hope is that at every level of engagement, you get a little bit more out of it. And we're trying to meet, right? Like it's Jed and I trying to meet one another's level of engagement and one up each other. And it's also us trying to reward the reader's level of engagement. And that's what the letters pages are all about too.
Yeah. One thing that this reminds me of is one of my favorite sci-fi authors is E. Doc Smith, did the Lensman series. And all of that reads almost like the journal or like the diary of like a future soldier, like in an almost intergalactic interdimensional war. And it feels like you're reading like a historical document from the future. And that's what this kind of reminds me of. And I don't know why, but as soon as I say that, it reminds me of Galaxy Quest when it's like, we need your help. It's like the historical documents, so like, I love how this, again, just reading through it, it has that Dune feel, but it also has that, like, you're reading something that it feels like has already occurred. It is an experience to read these issues. Like it's experiential. I guess that's the one word I can use to round it up.
And if I could brag on you both as well, Aubrey, everything you said, I agree with. And Jed, I would love to get your thoughts on this as well. But just to sort of brag on you both, everybody, these are $3.99. Okay. There aren't many comics out there that you even get a fraction of the information in issue for less than $4, especially from the big 2. So I think, like, if I could give anyone the biggest sort of pitch for this book is that you are getting your money's worth 100% when you pick up an issue of Free Planet,
Oh man, more than.
Yeah. And Jed, just to sort of pass it off to you really quickly too,
Sure.
Sort of same question that I asked Aubrey. If you have someone who comes to you and says, wow, this is a dense thing, is there anything different in terms of your approach to Aubrey's on how you sell this book?
I have not really been engaged on the sales point on this book, really. I actually had precisely this conversation with a friend of mine. I gave him a copy of Free Planet, and he said, I like the art, and I'm like, my eyes are too old to read the tiny words. It's like, well, now I know. I've got Aubrey's toolkit. Say, just read as much as you like. Right?
Uh-huh. Someone put Free Planet in an audiobook. We need this for the older generation.
Yeah, the large print edition.
Right.
But yeah, I don't have much to say on selling it. I'm afraid I'm ears deep in drawing it, and I don't really come up for air that much.
Sure.
I feel like Jed's hair might have been the same color as Aubrey's when they started this process.
And now 9 issues in, he's
jet
got
black.
he's got a little salt and pepper going on now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aaron, go ahead.
No, I thought you already did your.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's my fault. My turn here. Okay, sorry, everybody. So let's talk about the
Finally!
series.
Not my fault.
You just witnessed
You got him
Oblivion
on board.
Bar history. I was wrong, everybody, live on camera. Let's talk about this series in a very broad term. Now, I will say that, like, in a very broad sense, spoilers ahead, everybody. I don't want to confuse anyone and say that we're going to go completely spoiler free, but like, we're not going to talk about deep plot points, but I want to just sort of broadly talk about some
How about
things
this?
here.
Let's spare them any kind of interpersonal drama.
There we
spoilers.
go. Yes. Agreed.
But we can 100% talk about stuff revealed in all the captions and kind of larger world building things. 100%.
Aubrey, you give me a yay or a nay of these next 4 points if it's too spoilery, and I will cut them out. Okay, how about that?
I don't want to. I don't. You, use your best judgment, and I'll agree with you no matter what.
Okay.
Now I feel dictatorial.
I've been there.
I like to be dictatorial, but I don't like to feel that.
Sure.
way. That's the distinction.
Let's go with Richard Tutorial.
That's right. Thank you.
All ages of listeners.
So, a couple of big highlights here. I think these are worth noodling on and discussing. So, we have maybe some potential love happening within the ranks between some folks.
Sure.
Commander Oliver, and tell me if I'm saying this incorrectly. You know, we already talked about this, but like Gauchin.
I say Grakon.
Grakon?
It's got the yeah.
There we go. Aaron
Oh.
said Grakon before the recording, so good job, Aaron. Again,
Ooh,
he's been right
twice.
twice in this episode. One more time, and we've unlocked the key to time. Has presumably been kidnapped at some point in the story. There's religious fractures happening within this story between the Tomekiam. I hope I'm saying that again incorrectly. With those leaders, we get to meet the Auroran Empire, who I am curious about. These like sort of super marines within the world.
Maybe.
Auroran, perhaps. Yeah.
I say, man, Aaron and I. Where are you from, Aaron?
I'm not really from anywhere. I've never lived anywhere more than like 4 years. So
Oh, okay.
But Alaska is basically
Las Vegas.
So I don't know. I was wondering. I'm from Virginia, and I say everything kind of funny. And people make fun of me for it. So I was just wondering if like we had like similar accents, because I also say Auroran. Yeah. How do you say that, Aaron? How do you say the religion?
Teomekim.
Yeah, that's
Teomekim?
Aaron and I are linguistically
Or either
incompatible.
that or Teomekim, like with a kind of an emphasis on the Mekim.
Oh, that's neat too.
These different
It
syllables.
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's all made up. People say whatever you want. Say absolutely whatever you want.
As we established, words are all words are made up, and
I should have learned my lesson. When I did No One Left to Fight, the characters, like they have like made up names, and like they have like weird like diacritic like accent marks on them and stuff.
Yeah.
And people still just come up to me and they're like, "Oh, how do I? Is it valet?" And I was like, "No, bro, I say veil. I don't know." It's just a name. It just looks cool. Like it looks like it's a visually interesting looking word to me, and we put the things over it like that. Don't stress it so much.
Well, and then also I think the big one too is Yori Ken. Yori Ken.
Uralkin?
I say
Ken?
Ural Ken.
Ural Ken. Okay, it was 1 for 4.
Yeah.
Ural
It's a
Ken.
That's
little
what,
bit-
Ural Ken.
It's
yeah.
adjacent.
The
to
Street
that.
Fighter
Yeah.
move.
So let's and actually I want to go back to one that we didn't mention here, which is Jackson Crater. That's really the one I want to sort of noodle on
The
first.
man.
Yeah. And his inclusion within the Freedom Guard. And I think for folks who haven't made it to issue 2 yet, I will just say sort of loosely is that this person is presumed to be somewhat of a like intergalactic terrorist. And as someone who has recently joined sort of the team, right? What does the inclusion of Jackson on this team and within the story thus far, what does it say about sort of the price of freedom? And we'll get into that conversation about freedom and the price of it later on. But just out of curiosity, what does Jackson represent on the team?
That's a great question.
I was just trying to remember. I think he got included by like council fiat, right? So there must be people who are sympathetic to his cause on the council, which is the freedom of the next planet over. But he's also got a lot of blood on his hands in the process of doing so, and a lot of the people who are on the team kind of revile him for that. But yeah, what's your thinking on?
I think it's about compromise.
Mhm.
It's about compromise, and it's about necessity, right? And I think that's not just a thing that Jackson is about, but like that's what Free Planet is about in a large sense throughout, right? They've won the revolution. The revolution's over, right? They've had their ideals. They set up this new way of doing things, and they're trying to make it work. But along the way, they run into things that are not viable. And they have to compromise. They have to do these different things. Jackson is brought on the team not merely because there are people who are sympathetic to his cause on this planet, the next planet over, but also because of what he can offer them, right? Through contacts in this shadowy intergalactic underworld, allowing them to procure the salvage and the supplies that they are otherwise locked out from getting access to because they're no longer part of this big hegemonic government, this universal government. And so Jackson he represents a complexity of vision as well as the necessity of compromise.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. They say that like deals are done in shadows, right? And like a lot of historic moments throughout history were done by people whose names will never be mentioned, right? And
Sure.
and I think what you guys do really well in that second issue with Jackson is that you show the nuance of war, or like I guess the nuance of people who fight wars, and that like good people can do bad things, but also bad people can do good things, right?
And people do good and bad things in service of good and bad ideas, right? Like it's complex, and like I don't know. I am not to get too like personal with y'all, but like it really means a lot to me hearing. At least I don't know. I don't want to put words in Aaron's mouth, but like hearing it come from at least one of y'all, because y'all served, and Free Planet is a military book, and I did not serve. Jed did not serve, but it's been important to us that it feel authentic and that it feel real, and it's still a sci-fi book with like weird tentacle alien and space marines and stuff, right?
It's
like
art.
It is a sci-fi book, but we wanted it to have that verisimilitude and that authenticity, and because this is important, complex stuff, and the military background of our characters really does sit at the core of how this struggle is expressing itself.
Mm-hmm. So Aaron, again, as Aubrey, you just mentioned, Aaron and I, we actually met while we were in the military. We understand sort of what it's like. And I'm only speaking from like someone from America living in sort of the 2010s, post 9/11 sort of time frame, right? Where like, as someone who grew up in the Midwest and was told by everyone in my circle as a young person that join the military, do your part, protect, and I'm saying this quotations, freedom, right? Like you're there to do a good deed. But I think what you find out, and I'm going to say this very broadly, that like while in the military, it is, I think, less about protection and more about service. Aaron, are you sort of feeling a similar thing? Because you joined very young as well, right?
Yes. No, I agree. And it's interesting because I just had I had a conversation with somebody today who I think was either from Belgium or I was in a group call with some people from, anyways, doesn't matter. But we had a really interesting conversation because we were talking about the differences in how service is perceived by, younger generations across the world. We're really one of the only like all volunteer militaries still in the world, and you have some countries that are still mandatory service requirements, so there's like this interesting approach and an interesting thought process. Cause I mean, honestly, I'll just get to the point and stop beating around the bush. Youth from the United States are really some of the most, I'm not going to say immature, but they don't think very maturely when it comes to long life and long lasting like effects of what your choices have. And the military,
you're invincible until you're not.
Yes. In other countries, they're very much really in tune with the political, like the geopolitical, world, the environment, and how their military service is going to feel when they have to get there, when they have to serve. So these worldly affairs are really more important to, younger generations around the world other than in the United States. So I always think about that when I'm having conversations with people and what service means to them. What does military service mean to you, depending on where you're from? And for, United States, for our youth, it's very much a kind of like, it's patriotic. You're a hero. It's glamorized. You're
automatically a hero, which is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like you go in as a hero just for signing up.
Instead of it just being like a job or being like something that you have to do going forward. So it's such an interesting, again, conversation with people because, again, I wasn't really raised, I didn't join because it was glamorous. My parents are both in the military and I know they both went through a lot of things. For me, it's very different. I joined because I needed to get away from living in my car. And so when I joined, it was about survival. It was about education, survival, and creating a life for myself. So again, service means everything for everybody in different, unique ways. But it's really something that everybody should be kind of, again, they should look at with foresight into how it's going to impact the rest of their life. And I don't mean to keep going, but is that kind of like what you're saying, Chris? Or like, is that, I know I went on a bit of a tangent.
No, I'm just curious because, Aubrey, what you and Jed do here with this series, I think it's just interesting how, and we actually have a question about how you mentioned in your Substack recently that this is a military story at the end of the day. And I just found it interesting that like being two folks who have, getting quote unquote served and also like survived that service and how like in reflection, we can look back and go, oh man, maybe that dream wasn't exactly what we thought it was, sometimes, right? So again, more of a noodle, less of an actual point to be made is what I'm saying.
Well, I've been loving this. I was taking notes while Aaron was talking because this is fascinating stuff to hear. And it's exactly the type of stuff that we're trying to dig into, right? Like, and the thing that I wrote down specifically was, what does military service mean to you? Because that's a valuable, because while you were, my brain moves and I was listening. I was not ignoring you, thinking about something else. I was listening to you, and I was also thinking about how that question would be answered not only by each individual character, but also the different societies that exist within Free Planet. And like that's one of the things that I enjoy most about writing Free Planet is thinking about complex moral and ethical codes and the different ones that are possessed by the different societies and then the variations of the individual. And so like everybody on the team, all the Freedom Guard, they have these very like not necessarily well thought out, but like well thought out by me kind of guardrails and like belief systems. And I'm not talking, and some of it's religious and some of it is like political philosophy, but some of it's not. Some of it's just about like loyalty, right? Like, and like how important that is to a person and how that expresses itself, right? And questions like that, like, so like, what is military? What does service actually mean to you? And like the differences between the different factions within the world is incredibly valuable. I owe you a drink, Aaron, because that's incredibly helpful. Yeah, well, you'll see that expressed in issue 11, probably.
That's exactly what I was going for. So you're welcome.
Yeah, that's what issue 11's about.
We won't know. We won't know there's any homage unless one of your characters is really into muscle mommies. That's how we know that it was something brought on by inspiration of Aaron.
Bro, here's the thing. If they're not a muscle mommy and Jed's drawn them, they're into muscle mommies. Yeah.
just go ahead and anticipate that from the jump. That's safe.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go too much off on a tangent, but I also want to say like I there's so much to sense about these characters as well. Like and I want to give Jed some flowers here real quick. There's in issue 3, one of my favorite scenes was it was a very simple one, and I'm not going to go into the details too much, but it's the one where I again, I'm still learning the names also, but the basically the robot is, and I'm also trying not to
Talon.
Yeah, I'm not trying to give away the story as well, but he is assisting somebody with some pain in their back. Okay.
Oh, we can say that.
Okay.
He's giving Gloria a massage.
Yes. Yeah.
they're in a like that. That's an issue. That is a big moment in issue 1.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Okay.
we're on issue 3 now. We can't be living in the past with these people refusing to get on board with the hottest new comic of 2025.
Exactly.
It's on them.
That's right.
They've screwed up. So no. Talon and Gloria
Yeah.
in a relationship, and Talon's giving her a massage with those powerful clamp hands.
Yeah.
Talon has.
Yeah. But this Marine walks in and like, but or is like trying to enter her quarters, and there's this moment where she's like, get some distance from me, because she doesn't want anybody to know that they're in a relationship, and it's just I wanted to give Jed some flowers because in that scene, like the way that it's drawn out is this is one of those ones like for me I can't imagine being able to draw something that can fully communicate the emotions of both of a robot and a woman who's trying to guard her authority in the military against being like found out, about what's going on. And so I'm just like, and then there's the moment, like this is panel also where the robot speaks up, where Talon speaks up, and she just like puts her hand up almost like to shush him. And it's just, I don't know, in that like I said, I'm just trying to give you some flowers because you communicated this subtle mood and like these nuances that go between kind of a secret relationship. You just did it so well, and it's like a panel like that which can be so unassuming. I just want to give you the flowers again because you like, I don't know, I loved that story, or that portion of the story. Those panels were incredible. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
They say that artists are the best actors, and I think that you can tell a lot by how a character looks in the panel. If you can figure out what's happening on the panel without looking at a word balloon, I think an artist has done an excellent job with that panel, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly the case in this one. And so I want to make sure that, when it comes to this world building, when it comes to these characters, they can be written obviously amazingly and have such amazing backstories and stuff, but like without like somebody like Jed at the helm, you guys got to go out there and like check this out, because to be able to communicate those small little intricacies and again in a humanoid robot and a female and like this I don't know, that's enough. We'll move on to the next question. I could go on for hours, but sorry.
No, it's fun trying to make Talon act because he's or they, I guess,
Where's he going? Oh, he's getting
He's
it.
getting some off
fairly
camera.
inexpressive. Yeah, here's the
There it
whole
is.
thing.
Okay.
Here's I built him so that I could.
Now, is that like clay, or what is that?
Looks
Was
like
that material
clay.
there?
It's like out of Sculpey or something.
Yeah.
It's a little head bust that I have so that I can keep Talon consistent from different angles. But then I have to translate on the the acting, which is, I don't know how Talon expresses with a metal face, but it's mainly eye rotations.
Well, listen, Tom McFarlane, I know you're listening with McFarlane Toys. We want the Talon figure, and we already have the bust for it.
Yeah.
So, let's get that in production ASAP, I think,
Talon's
right?
a standout character, man. I was shocked at first because I thought everybody was going to just flip. And there is like a clear number 2. Do y'all want to guess who the number 2 is?
I'm going to guess. Is it Jackson?
No, it's the
Okay.
it's the blue skinned army man with cool sideburns.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm shocked that the two of you didn't leap on that.
I think it's Jackson, but nobody wants to say he's their favorite. I
Right.
think that's
Nobody
what
wants,
it is.
yeah. Nobody wants to admit that. No, people love Keen, and I
Keen,
thought
yeah.
Keen was going to be the standout because like he's like Rambo, but he's like Rambo with
Yeah,
like
he's
blue
like Solid
skin
Snake or something. Yeah.
yeah. Like he's all these cool archetypes. He's like Snake Eyes. He doesn't talk very much. Like I don't know. I thought he was going to be the standout, and everyone I gave issue 1 to read, like before we were out, and I asked them, like, who's your favorite character? And they 9 out of 10 people said, without missing a beat, the robot. The robot. And I was really shocked at first, and I realized, oh, the robot gets laid.
I like
he's also the mistress.
I love the robot, but I also the and I hope I'm saying this right, the Usmansons.
Oh, yeah.
I need to know more about them. Like that's, and it's
Hell
not
yeah.
because she is a muscle mommy. It's because he's in a giant suit, like a giant like vat suit, and he over there like I don't remember what there. And I'm trying to think from RoboCop because you had like Ed 209, and then you had the machine that what's his face
Oh yeah, from 2, right?
from 2, like he got his brain and his spinal like cord portion and his eyeballs put into this into this robot suit, and I'm like that's what that reminds me of. So yeah, I'm just that's I think those two are my standouts.
I love here. So you're gonna have to wait a little while to learn more about the Usmansons, because Jed and I kind of, and I think accurately, have bet on their design being interesting enough for a while, because they've done exactly nothing in the book, and you're talking about how much you like them. That's not true. They haven't done nothing. They welcomed Euro Ken, Ambassador Euro Ken.
They had
that
a
was in issue
flashback
3.
scene in issue 3.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You've seen some of them so far.
And also, Basil made a mess on the floor.
Basil did make a
mess.
He's in a big suit.
Oopsies.
Yeah.
He's in a big suit.
like an iron lung with arms and legs. Yeah.
All right, sorry, I get sidetracked by the giant robot suits. So Jed, this one's we're gonna start with you on this one. So you mentioned like on your Patreon that the revolutionary leader of the Lutherian War, Commander Oliver Graken, was like a late addition to the story, which is interesting because he's actually he's the first and arguably really the central character from what it feels like in the story, at least at the opening. Right. So why was his addition so valuable? And will we ever learn why he wears the visor?
Let's see. Well, I'm not sure how. I think we brainstormed him up together, right? We needed a spare character. Like you'd written up the main cast, and I was thinking that there needed to be some other person. Sets things in motion, but isn't actually around very much, right? We needed. I mean, for lack of a better word, somebody who suffers some stakes.
The purpose, it's interesting. I'm struggling to remember exactly how and why we brought Grakon into things. Like, you're right. It started very much with the idea of us thinking about the team, right? And like the eventual team and what it would become. But I don't know how we landed on exactly this idea of setting the team adrift, right? And also what Grakon has come to be and continues to be, right? You'll see it in issue 4, like coming out next week, he's become this thing to aspire to. In his absence, he's become this folk hero. And I'm speaking about in the world, as well as kind of as a reader, I think, and I hope, right, is that even though he's not in the issue, he has a presence, because all the people revere him. Like, that's the one thing everybody agrees on, is how great Oliver Grakon was, right? And he's become more important as a character as we've moved on, which is really weird because he hasn't shown up yet.
Right.
He hasn't shown up again after that first issue. So it's, I don't know. I don't remember how we landed on that, but I'm glad we did, because he's important.
I think I'd suggested having another character later on in the series, and I think you just moved him to the front.
Oh, okay. Classic teamwork, classic Jed Aubrey teamwork. That's how we do it.
And now it's seamless, and it's not all being made up.
Yeah.
It's a history.
It's all deeply considered.
Yeah, but I think you say in the back matter on 3 that he lost his eyesight as a child. I think. There's a picture of him sitting there with some kids, like reading his book. Yeah.
Do I say he lost it as a child?
I believe so.
Chris is looking at it right now.
I'm looking at it right now, everybody. Having lost his own eyesight as a child.
Yeah. There you go.
Presumably in some kind of horrific Orchalium-related industrial accident.
I was testing Chris. Of course, I remember every stitch that I've written for Free Planet without having to look up anything ever. I do not have extensive spreadsheets and Word documents open on my computer at all times. That's not the case.
I'm getting like sort of Winston Churchill vibes from Graken. Am I close? Am I warm on this?
I don't know. I thought about George Washington a lot with regard to Oliver Grakon, because like Washington, Grakon won the war and said, I don't want to be involved.
Right. Sort of a wartime leader, and then exits.
And yeah, exactly. And we had a whole ass other government before the current Constitution, right? That Washington sat out of, and it went terribly, and they guilted him into it. They guilted him into coming back and being president, but that wasn't what he wanted to do. What he wanted to do was just go back to Mount Vernon, right? And that was very much in my mind about Oliver Grakon. And Oliver George Washington,
bit of Ben Franklin too, right? He's like a professional scrivener as well, right? He's got some zines.
I was
he
going to
puts
say
out.
more Thomas Paine.
Okay.
If I may. Yeah. Who wrote Common Sense in the revolutionary times. Yeah, he's a pamphleteer, and he is this revolutionary judge. So he's like kind of a combination George Washington, Thomas Paine, and
Alexander Hamilton.
No Hamilton. No Hamilton. He doesn't rap.
Yeah.
He doesn't do any of that.
Okay.
But yeah, and then the other kind of component was the Gracchi, which, if you know your Roman history, were like were a notable family of what passed for kind of populist. They were the populist actors within the Roman Republic before the Roman Empire, and they were a family, and there were multiple generations of them that kind of played that role.
I'm noticing the Winston Churchill comparison. Honestly, it felt good on the surface, but hearing you talk about this, because Churchill was more of like a war, like he was the general, right? But he didn't really have that diplomatic side of him. I think that was sort of considered his weakness throughout his leadership, and that's why whenever the war ended, when World War II ended, he was sort of almost like, I wouldn't say he was pushed out, but they like, there was a revolt against sort of his leadership once the war was won, So
I mean, here's the other big reason why Winston Churchill wasn't a big influence on Oliver Gracchon. I don't know anything about Winston Churchill. I know absolutely nothing. So sure, man. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well,
I haven't gotten up to World War II yet. I did the Spanish Civil War, but I haven't made it all the way up.
Well, I want to poke you a little bit about Yuri Ken. We talked about earlier. Aaron, who was it was from Mass Effect that you said you
he reminds me, I'm a Mass Effect fan, so he reminds me of the Hanar from Mass Effect. I don't know if you happen to remember that character.
Not familiar.
So basically, just for the reader, or sorry, I guess the reader and the listener, that these are a race of beings that literally wear their emotions through like a coloration, right, on their face, and yet we as the reader, and seemingly the characters within the story thus far, still know very little about this race of Quadros, right, or the Hive. You mentioned the Hive as well, and I meant to ask you sort of the difference between the Hive and the Quatros. What was that? Maybe did I miss something in the reading?
Fantastic question. It hasn't been explained explicitly.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know. Like, this isn't like an Aubrey thing. This is just like a sci-fi thing, right? Like if you read like classic like 60s sci-fi novels, there is a really heavy expectation for readers to piece shit together or just go with it, because it's not ultimately that important. So like, this is a good thing. Like there is a distinction, but it will not impact your appreciation of the book one way or the other. The Quadros is the race. The Hive is the structure of their society.
Like the Borg.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Star Trek and Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Like the Xenomorph.
Yeah. So what they also have, though, the Quatros, is the fastest, most convenient form of traveling in this universe, which is the Quattro jaunting, right? So we see Commander Sunares. Am I saying her name correctly? Sunandez, thank you. Already weary of Yuri Ken when they are introduced at the beginning of issue 3. They have someone following them sort of throughout the rest, or at least going into issue 4. But if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly here, Yuri Ken both being on the cover of the next issue, which is issue 4, but also, and I noticed this last night rereading this, they're also on the cover. Where were they at here?
They're on the cover of 1.
They're on the cover of issue 1.
As is Jackson.
Yeah.
So Jackson. Jackson's there
and
too.
Jackson, absolutely. Yeah. So like there are clearly, you guys are laying out tea leaves to like maybe the significance of certain characters going forward in the series. And Aubrey, I guess that's sort of my long-winded way of asking you and set up this question. We haven't seen you reveal the process post, and I'm curious, what is the real life, faction of people or inspiration of the Quattro, and what do they represent in this world?
So there isn't really a real world analog to the Quadros. They are meant to be utterly alien, right? And Jed and I talked a lot about the design, and like most things, we chatted a lot about it, and I worried and kvetched, and then Jed went off and just nailed it the first time out, because we wanted him to be weird. We didn't want him to look human, and Jed was the coloration idea was yours, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, it's in the notes on him.
Yeah, and Jed came with that brilliant idea to make him a mood ring.
Yeah, it's they're like what half a squid, half a guitar kind of. That's about.
That's what the Quadros are.
The thinking, yeah.
And as you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned this specifically, but the whole thing with the Quadros are that they see in 4 dimensions, and they see the past, present, and future, and they don't really make too much of a distinction between the 3, and so they mess up their tenses all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's like a perpetual thing, and it's always a little bit odd writing them, and they communicate through color because and the color. And all that the color communicates is emotional states, right? But they're alien emotional states. And so they're described with 2 different, seemingly unconnected emotional states or like ways of feeling that in the context of a creature that sees 4 dimensions made sense to me, right? And like the thinking on them being emotional states is that if you are in a society of creatures that everybody knows past, present, and future and sees all that stuff, the only valuable information to convey to one another, because you all know the same stuff. You have the exact same knowledge base, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The only valuable information to convey is how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's all that Quadros do to talk to each other amongst the hive, right? They show each other's emotional state because that's all that matters. But when it comes to interacting with humans, they have to speak English or they have to speak a language. It doesn't have to be. That's very Amerocentric. That's very U.S. centric of me. I apologize profusely.
Wow.
They have to speak. Wow.
To our listeners, we apologize for Aubrey and his jingoistic, nationalistic views here. Yeah.
But yeah, so when they talk to humans, they have to kind of wing it. And in terms of antecedents in other literature, I thought a lot about. You ever read Slaughterhouse-Five?
It's Kurt Vonnegut. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are they called, Jed? The Trafalgarians? Is that right?
I don't know. I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's neat. And they see everybody. They see everyone as like a train of their entire life's existence, right? So like they look at a person, they see, simultaneously a baby and a dying old man, right? And so I thought about that quite a bit. And in terms of like what they like, the purpose they serve, that Ural-Ken serves in this narrative, to me, and this is something that. So Free Planet's about freedom, but not merely, freedom to set up a new government. It's also about economic freedom. It's about religious freedom. It's about theological freedom, spiritual freedom. It's also about predestination, right? It's also about this idea that, different characters within the book have different views on whether we're in a deterministic world or not. Right? Whether we get a say, whether the stuff that's happening is just happening to us and it's all up to us to just kind of react and emote to it the way that Ural-Ken and the Quadros see it, or whether things are more malleable and to what degree, right? And so to Ural-Ken, freedom is a very different thing than, and maybe even just kind of like an oddity and just a strange, very human alien concept for them to even wrap their brain around. So, like every character, and Ural-Ken's a core member of the cast, right? And that's you're right to pick that up, like from that first cover. That's the core cast. Everybody has very distinct views and relationships with one another's. And Ural-Ken's role there is to provide a outside alien voice, to provide a distinct point of view from outside of what everyone else is experiencing, with a wholly different view of what freedom actually is. Like he agrees the least out of anybody about what freedom is, because to his mind, this stuff has happened. It is happening. It's going to happen. It's all the same thing.
Yeah.
I like drawing him whenever he gets excited about not knowing what's going on. When he gets confused, he's also happy, right? He's kind of in a new state. Most
he does
of the time
things with his He does things with his thing, with his
Oh yeah, he's
his
got all
mouth
his little
tentacles,
scalps all curled up and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jed, can I?
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to poke you on something that you just mentioned there, because it brought on an idea that I had while reading issue 3. You have this incredible, again, speaking on like how you should read Free Planet and how it's properly only correctly read physically in your hands. And this goes back to this dogfight that you guys have in issue 3 that is insane. That's all I'll really say about it in sort of a broader term. But I'm curious, there towards the end of this, scene, we see a very specific panel of Ural Ken. And you mentioned at the beginning of the issue sort of the different emotions and how you can read those. And in this panel of Ural Ken, they reside obedient. And I'm just curious, is there a spoiler-free way of sort of dissecting that and why they feel obedient in that moment?
Actually, I don't remember why he feels resigned and obedient in that moment.
I'm looking through the issue now.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
Oh, it's the end.
I believe it's because he's seeing the Aurorans destroy themselves. Spoilers. Out of duty, and he probably has a glimpse on where things are going in that direction. I don't know if you've seen previews for issue 4, but no, I don't think.
No, issue four is the insurrection.
Yeah. So I think he's resigned to the fact that there is going to be, shall we say, more Auroran interference.
So here's what I think you've touched on kind of what I find exciting from a storytelling perspective about Ural Ken. And in the same issue, we've got the key, Ural. We call it the Ural key. For Ural Ken, and it's very good. And that's meant to be, again, just like that shot of the full team, just like anytime you're like wondering about specific lore pieces, this is meant to be referred back to because we adhere to it throughout, right? Like this is not just like made up for funsies. Like, oh, look at these different colors; they mean different things. No. There are. You picked up on the first one, Chris. Like throughout, there are close-ups of Ural Ken, and he's a specific color. And unless you've memorized it, that means your ass is gonna have to go back and look and figure it out. But here's the thing: just like we were saying earlier, you don't have to.
Right?
You don't have to. Right? Like you can take what you want from it and enjoy it for what it is, and think about how Ural Ken would respond to that, or how he would feel about that, or you can go back and look at the key. Right. And because Ural Ken has foreknowledge, right? Purportedly has foreknowledge, Ural Ken has opinions and feelings about things that won't naturally be aligned with the way other people feel about it, people who don't have that foreknowledge. And I think that is hopefully an exciting thing for readers to kind of grapple with, asking the exact same question you were just asking. It was like, okay, well, why is he resigned and obedient? And why are those two things the same thing to Ural Ken, and why does he feel both of them about this? And that's Free Planet, baby. That's what it's all about. Forcing you to ask yourself questions.
Yeah.
Interrogate yourself about aliens.
If there was ever a moment where, like let's say in the future, like, you hear about Aubrey Sitterson going off the rails batshit crazy, like it's probably going to be after this book, because it's Free Planet, baby, and he's just like on drugs, he's like,
baby.
like he's living in the hippie life out in the woods. He's like, that's what it's all meant for,
baby.
Yeah. No, I
right.
I love it because like and it's funny, you're kind of blowing my mind when you were talking about the different cast members of the cast and how they all have their own like view of like freedom and science and what the world and what religion, what freedom means to them. And I'm thinking again about the Usmansons, and I'm thinking that they're probably going to bring this like scientific, like freedom is about like progressing science and doing these things. So I'm excited to see what they're my
through strength.
Yeah,
right?
they are my favorites in this, because I don't know, I just gravitate towards the scientists, towards the doc in med bay. So I'm excited for that. But I want to kind of round out our conversation here and touch on something that's like really important for Chris and I,
which we've already kind of touched on a little bit.
We did a little bit, yeah, we did a little bit. This is kind of like an adjacent to that question about like freedom and things. But you recently wrote, Aubrey, on your Substack about how Free Planet, obviously we said it before, is a military story at its core, and how the pursuit of freedom and how it all starts with the military. And this idea of like more guns, better chance at revolution. And we're curious about, like, while doing the research and equating how like our world currently is in 2025, we know that there's, if you look back and I'm sure, again, this is kind of like leaning on your research and looking at military history, when it comes to like controlling the media, winning over like voice of public opinion, or just ignoring both of those and kind of doing your own freaking thing because you're the so-and-so leader of the free world. Like, how do you compare the importance of these things in like historical like conflict to now?
That's interesting. Okay, so let me restate your question just to make sure I understand. Amid the different methods of control of a populace, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things like the media and religion, but also just force, right? And the economic power, right? Like, amid all of these things, how has the role of each changed over time?
Can I clarify really quickly? I think I know what Aaron's saying here is that, like, in your Substack, you mentioned that like the power of the military, if you have them on your side in a revolution, that it gives you the best and really only chance of winning that revolution. In 2025, if you were to sort of look at that processes through the lens of our current situation in America, and I hope this doesn't get too political. If you don't want it to get there, you totally can if you want. But like with the internet, with social media, with the voice of public opinion, do you still believe that like having the power of the military behind you is the only way to start and kick off and eventually win a revolution?
Yes.
Moving on.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, like, and this is, I think it is tempting, and there are entire industries, and that's a key component of this. There are entire industries built around making you think that any number of things, right? Watching this movie, buying this t-shirt, boycotting this place, buying more from this place. There are countless industries, not just industries built around it. Every industry that exists uses that to make you believe that that is what is effective,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's kind of like the economic one. And so that's the biggest one, right? And there are examples from all the other forms of power and control that Aaron rattled off as well. And those systems have a vested interest in you believing that that's true. Right. In our country, it's really easy to get lulled into thinking, well, that's the only viable thing because, the nature of the U.S. military is what it is, but that is a culturally specific thing. That is a culturally and historically specific thing to us, right? That is the nature of our military. And that is how our military has always existed and how it's fit into things, right? Maybe not always existed, but for quite a long time, right? How it is fit into this larger milieu of systems of control and coercion, right? To like broaden a little bit. But yeah, like when it comes to actually winning a revolution, right? Like if it's a revolution, I mean, like, the metaphorical usage aside, if it's an actual revolution, well, then it's a conflict. It's a military conflict, right? Because people don't give up power.
Mm-hmm.
People don't just hand over. There aren't really truly bloodless revolutions,
there's
right?
coups d'etats all over the planet all the time.
Yeah, man. So like no, and like I'm not saying this as a like fervent philosophical thing. I'm saying it as a practical matter. Militaries are absolutely essential to a successful revolution. Like I think it is foolish and nonsensical and fantasy land talk to pretend otherwise, honestly. And like that could be fun for a story, right? It's the love revolution or it's this. And we just went on the news and we've convinced everybody that, this is how we should reorganize our society. Like that's a fun enough story, but that's not authentic or honest. It's disingenuous, I think. And it would be at odds with what we're trying to explore with Free Planet.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about more serious stuff than that, right? We're talking about more serious stuff than the commodification of rebellion, right? And it is about deeper, more foundational issues. And I'll say this too, because I feel like we are like kind of edging into political territory, which is difficult not to do with Free Planet because it's a book about politics, right? It's a book about geopolitics. But I'll say this: I have been delighted and encouraged by the support that Free Planet has received up and down the political spectrum. And that's really important to me too, because my politics are what they are, and they're not terribly relevant, I don't think, to Free Planet. But you might be able to kind of like, you might think you can kind of like tease them out and think what they are, but it doesn't really matter. What matters to me is that we're grappling with deeper and more foundational issues that have a broader appeal than preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
And I've been really encouraged that people with very different political beliefs than me, very, very different social beliefs than me, have dug Free Planet and have found things to appreciate about it, because that was the intent.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I love Beef Bros is another one of my books. It's very political. And it's propaganda, right? It's agitprop. It's gleeful agitprop. And that's how it was designed. That's not what Free Planet's meant to be. Free Planet is meant to be this more complex thing, but it is, and it's complex by being rooted in real world considerations, which is why, yeah, man, the military is essential. It's a story about a revolution that's just been won. The best lens to view that through, I think, and having read about all these different revolutions, are the people who fought in the revolution.
I think that one thing that really sticks out to me regarding this and the relevancy of a lot of the topics that are brought up in this book is, again, like the fracturing of society because of different belief systems and how important that will play into, how conflicts are, confronted, how we take part in these things, because that is one thing I see because when I read, when I read something and I hear something that says more guns, better chance at a revolution, to some people's ideas.
So if I could say, I don't think I said exactly that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't think that was my exact. I think I said something more along the lines of the military is an essential component of any revolution because the military has the guns.
Yes. Right. But
yeah,
I think that's what I said, which I think is subtly different from the more guns, the better chance at revolution. The more guns, the better chance at revolution.
Aubrey says, "Come take it."
It implies a certain intent or desire or level of maybe legally actionable encouragement that was not intended.
Don't tread on me.
Just put this out there right now to anybody listening. He is not asking for another January 6th. Right. No, what I kind of want to say is the way that I look at it is people in political power tend to look at service members as just like numbers and just another weapon on the battlefield.
As does our government.
The reason I say this is because if you can sway the belief system even of members of the military, especially today in our society, we have so many people who think in newer methodologies and newer ideologies than what's been in the military before or just been in public in general. When you're swaying the public, you're swaying more a generation than a certain demographic in the military. So whether you want to think about that as being, more guns as in more manpower, more people, and that being a stronger cause behind, or stronger force behind your cause, I think that's something that you are speaking to very well. I mean, maybe, implied or not, or intentional or not, in Free Planet, because you speak on, the fracturing of society and religion and all these different groups, because, even against, again, we're talking, sister against sister or lover against lover. These fractions occur when the belief systems are put under so much pressure that cracks will occur and divides will occur. So I think that you are speaking, again, that's what I take out of the book. And that's something that makes me more mindful of what I'm hearing, and not only the news, but what also I'm reading in this book and what I'm seeing visually. So I think you're tapping on many different things, as you said, for many different demographics, for many different sides of the aisle, or whomever picks up this book.
Yeah. And Jed, let me push it over to you really quickly too, because I'm curious to build off what Aaron just said and what Aubrey said a moment ago. There's this idea of when you talk about war, you're making a statement inherently. Like you can't tell a story about war without making a statement of some sort. Is that sort of yours? Is that sort of your belief, you and Aubrey together, in terms of like with Free Planet? Is it possible to tell a story about war without making some kind of statement about war and your beliefs about it?
I don't think it is. I think, I don't know. What I've always found when I'm drawing stuff, like drawing acts of violence, I feel like I'm doing violence in the, in a very minor way, but it's, I don't know. Sometimes it gets psychologically intense drawing some stuff. And so I can only imagine that hopefully this goes on to the readers and they sense this sort of, whatever the emotion invested. But politically, in weird political times, there's people wrestling for control of like you're talking about the military, about all various sections of the country. And I mean, as a kind of knee-jerk liberal leftist, I've kind of, I thought we had a good thing going for a long time, and I really hope it doesn't crack apart, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how to what kind of glue we can provide with a comic book, but maybe it'll make some people think and get more politically active. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that would be a great, because I think that's something this book can do for sure.
Yeah, Aubrey, I want to pass it off to you one last time before we close out the conversation. Is there anything you want to sort of add to that? Because I know that, again, that's sort of a large question to ask in terms of like, we're 4 issues in as of next week.
Will you ask it again? It was a really large question. I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Yeah, no, it's just, in terms of like when you write about war, is it possible to tell a story about war without putting your own sort of political ideals in that story or making a statement even, I guess?
So I think that broadly speaking, right, like the narrator impacts the perception of the work, right? Which is to say, you can't tell any story without you can't tell any story well. If you're telling a story well, if you're bringing personal lived experience and research and thought and deliberate care to making a story, it's impossible to do that unjudgmentally, right? Because if you're doing it unjudgmentally, you are writing an essay, right? And if you are not making deliberate choices, then it's not a story. It's just a list of anecdotes. It's just a list of things that happen in order, right? To make a story, you need that deliberate thought. You need that deliberate care. You need this voice. You need a personal voice, right? To any story. So I think on a broad level, like that's true of anything, right? You can't do a book about tables without really letting the audience know what you think about tables. Like that's true. Like that's a silly thing to say, but it's true. And I think what's different about war is that war is again, like from what I've read, war from the various books and magazines that I've read, war is such a heightened state, and it is bundled up so many visceral core human emotions, and it is central to the world that we live within, right? And it is a politically and emotionally charged topic, right? And this has always been the case, right? For obvious reasons, war is horrific. But the other side of war, when depicted, is that it looks amazing. It is an aesthetically delightful thing to look at, right? And this is true of the greatest anti-war stories ever made. They make war look awesome. It's an uphill battle all the time because war also does have bundled up within it so many things that are revered by not just our culture, but humans broadly over the course of human existence have valorized these things, right? And so how much of this is genetic, how much of it is just hardwired into us culturally, I don't know. It doesn't matter. But because of that, whenever you're dealing with, and I think violence is a great example of this too, right? Whenever you're dealing with something with that much raw emotion and power and weight, right? You have to be aware that people are going to be reacting to it in certain ways, and you have to anticipate that. And that's why your choices have to be so deliberate. So, like there is a really bloody, gory moment in issue 2. There aren't a whole lot of them, right? It's not like a gore book. That's not what we do, but there is a really bloody, nasty moment in issue 2. But it's important. Mm-hmm. It's important. And that was a choice by us. That wasn't done frivolously to just because it would look rad. It was done as a specific storytelling tool. And
it's a character showcase, I think, right?
It is. It's important. It's important for his character, I think. Yeah. And with Free Planet, all of the characters are defined by their time in the Revolutionary War. All of them are, but you only get glimpses of it, largely for the reason that we're discussing, right? We didn't want to do a war book, right? There's enough of those, and I don't know, it just doesn't really hold too much appeal to me. I'm much more interested in kind of the stuff around the war, right? And what comes out of it. And that allows us to keep a little bit of distance from war to hopefully keep its horror and its power intact.
And I think that's an excellent place to sort of stop with Free Planet thus far in the story. We're only 3 issues. Aaron, what do you got?
I just want to say, like, Jed, if I see you in public, if I meet you in public, I'm just going to give you a hug, man. Because like what he said about like, I don't know, like I want to just make sure he's okay. Like I want to make sure because he's like, when I draw violence or when I create violence, like I just feel like that impact. And I think that's something that's like, I know it's kind of funny, but it's also very real. It's very like, that's something that some people like that's a hard thing to do. And especially if you're not like used to it and it happens too long, that can be mentally and emotionally like very, very taxing. So like, I feel like, I don't know if Jed, I don't know if that's something that bothers you, man, but you're seen, you're heard, as somebody who's been through some violent shit, pardon my language, like I get it. And so, I'm gonna start checking like any artist that I know that I meet at a convention. I'm like, I'm just gonna be like, are you okay? Like,
someone see if Ryan Otley is okay after all this shit.
Somebody talk to Ryan Otley.
Somebody should sit Ryan down.
Yeah. Like I'm concerned.
Do a brother check-in.
Like, that's right. I just like what Jed said about that. Like it resonated, and I'm just like, man, like that's like I have a slight concern now. So, but it's like, but that is what it is. I mean, that's it. Yes, violence is a part of us as far as being human, but it's not something these days that we're so used to being like kind of exposed to, or at least we're not supposed to. And those of us, like who sign up for military service and then get exposed to it, I for one understand, and Chris, I know you understand because you've met plenty of people like, and like you understand what the impacts of like consistent exposure to violence can do to somebody emotionally, mentally, and physically. So, like, I mean, kudos to you, Jed, for being able to do this art and still be like, still have love for art and still be capable of that passion and energy and enjoyment of what you create while still having to deal with something like violence, however long it takes you to deal with it.
It's only one panel in this book, remember?
I understand, but we're probably going to get to see more of it, and he's probably done other violent things. So I'm just saying it's a lasting effect, Chris. Let me get this out, man. I'm trying to be caring and considerate here.
Goodness.
All right?
Thank you, Aaron.
I'm an empath.
I'll look you up at NYCC.
Yeah, do that.
For that hug. We need to get that hug happening.
Hug and a beer for sure.
All right. Well, Aubrey, Jed, again, thank you both so much for joining us. We kept you a little longer than we had hoped, but I think in order to properly discuss just 3 issues, again, of this series thus far, Free Planet, we need at least 90 minutes-ish to talk about those 3 issues to like give it its chance to having a proper conversation. And I think that, again, just speaks to what the work that you guys have put into the series thus far, and also the excitement that people like Aaron and I and listeners hopefully have, the excitement they have for this series. So once again, just as a reminder to the listener, issue 4 of Free Planet will come out the following Wednesday after this releases on August 13th. And then also be on the lookout for the trade paperback that collects the first, is it first 6 issues of the series?
It's the first 6.
Yeah.
It comes out, it'll be in comic shops November 26th and bookstores December 9th, I believe.
Please tell me there's a hardcover.
We're going to need an omnibus for deluxe cover
for next year.
Yeah, this one's just a trade. It'll be the first 6. But brother, if you think that I'm not also dreaming of the oversized Free Planet hardcover so we could maybe get those words a little bit bigger too. That's a thing. That's a thing I would love to see as well. But I'll tell you this, man. The ideal format for Free Planet, even if we get that big hardcover, it's the single issues, right? Because you were talking about issue 3. It's got the dogfight. It spins around. I guarantee you that's going to be more. That's going to be more fun to read in single issue format than it'll ever be in collected format. So, like it's a different experience. It's meant to be read as a periodical. It's meant to be a magazine that you get once a month and you kind of pick at and mull over for 30 days. And then you get another one. Right. That's how it's meant to be enjoyed. So I hope people aren't trade waiting. Another reason I hope people aren't trade waiting, letters pages, exclusive to the single issues. Exclusive. So there's all this additional lore and information and stuff to figure out and piece together that'll only be available to people in the single issue format.
Nice.
I love that. Yeah. We talked about Keen earlier and how you actually you had a question about Keen in the letters column at the end of issue 3. So, and among other, like you said, really awesome, thought-provoking questions. So I think definitely I agree there. And, before we let you both go, and again, we appreciate you both being here today to talk about Free Planet.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Jed, I'm going to pass it over to you first. Is there anything you want to sort of say to the listener? Anything you want to plug? Social medias? How do people follow you? All the cool things.
Let's see. You can follow me at Jebrioto on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and I believe that's also the handle for my Patreon page.
You should lead with Patreon because they can give you money there.
Yes,
go
true.
first to Jed's Patreon and give him money, and then the other ones if you feel like it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I should post more Free Planet stuff there.
All right, so Aubrey, let me pass it to you as well. How do folks? I know, again, you're the only Aubrey Sitterson on the internet, but just
it's so easy. Just Google me. Yeah. It's fine. It's super easy. Where I'm most active is Substack. I have it's about fortnightly newsletter. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. It averages out to about fortnightly. I do process posts about. I'll have a new one up this coming week for some pages from Free Planet 4, showing off kind of like the stages of their development. I do bibliography posts about books that kind of went into the stew that became Free Planet. And I keep you up to date on cons and such like Madison, Comic and Pop Culture Expo, I think it is. Madison Con. It's the only convention in Madison, Wisconsin this weekend. See me there. It'll be a hoot.
Yeah, look for the Walmart in Madison. It's right across the street from that, I'm assuming. I don't know. I've never been to Madison, but I would imagine that's true.
just playing the numbers.
Yeah. Well, everybody, if you go to Madison Con and you say you listen to this episode of the Oblivion Bar, Aubrey has something. I don't even know what it is. Aaron doesn't know what it is.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, I haven't decided.
Aubrey doesn't know. Jed doesn't know. I think the only one that knows is actually Jed. Jed fully knows what's going to be given out, but Aubrey doesn't. But go tell them that you listen to this episode of the Oblivion Bar and you'll get something cool from Aubrey. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. Aubrey, Jed, thank you so much. We'll love to chat with you.
Thank you, boys.
Just one mustache hair. Yeah.
Give it to you.
Thank you both so much for joining us. And we would love to have you back on, maybe for the trade, maybe have you back on, just talk about the first arc and
anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime. We can talk about stuff. We don't even have to talk about Free Planet next time.
Yeah.
We've done 2 of these already. So whatever, dealer's choice, whatever y'all want to talk about.
I'm going to start fake rumors that if you put one of Aubrey's mustache hairs under your pillow at night, you'll wake up 10% smarter.
You'll wake up with me sitting on your chest like a sleep paralysis demon, lecturing you about Teomechian dogma. That's what you'll get.
Well, on that note,
I dare you.
Thank you both so much for joining us here. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time here on the Oblivion Bar.
Best note to end the show on.